The story begins deep inside a dense forest, where a man is desperately running in the hope of finding a way out. However, the jungle is so thick and endless that no escape route can be seen anywhere. Using the position of the sun as his guide, he continues moving forward, but the sun is already beginning to set. Even so, he refuses to stop running. After covering a long distance, he reaches a strange signboard that reads, "Point of no return." Beneath the warning, the number 108 is written. The sight of the sign only makes him more anxious. As darkness slowly spreads through the forest, an eerie feeling of dread fills the surrounding. Suddenly, every bird in the area takes flight at the same time and disappears. What makes the situation even stranger is that despite traveling for miles through the jungle, the man has not seen a single wild animal. It is as if even the animals are afraid of something hidden within these woods. Terrified, he begins running even faster. But after several more hours of exhausting travel, he suddenly comes to a halt. A look of hopelessness spreads across his face because standing right in front of him is the exact same signboard marked with the number 108 and the words, "Point of no return." At that moment, he realizes the horrifying truth. No matter how far he runs, he cannot escape this forest. With night closing in, he starts searching for a place to hide. Unfortunately, there is no safe shelter anywhere nearby. Having no other choice, he climbs up a tree, hoping to stay out of danger. But just as he settles on a branch, it snaps beneath his weight. The man falls from a great height and crashes hard onto the ground. The fall leaves him badly injured with several serious wounds. Just before he loses consciousness, the ground suddenly begins to shake, and strange growling noises echo through the darkness. The sounds are so terrifying that his breath catches in his throat. Then, without warning, something grabs him and drags him away. The audience is never shown what took him, but his horrifying screams can be heard as he disappears into the darkness. 6 days after this incident, the story shifts to a city, where we are introduced to a young woman named Mina. She works at a bird shop, and one day her boss arrives with a special task. He asks her to deliver a rare golden parrot to a zoo located far outside the city. Mina agrees and places the parrot inside her car. After setting the zoo's location on her phone, she begins her journey. As she leaves the city behind, she notices a large board covered with photographs of missing people. It appears that many individuals have mysteriously disappeared from the area. However, Mina pays little attention to it and continues driving. Wanting to reach her destination faster, she decides to take a shortcut through a forest road. Unfortunately, that shortcut leads her directly into the very same forest where the mysterious man vanished. Soon, Mina finds herself trapped deep within the woods. She checks the map on her phone, but there is no signal. Even her car radio has stopped working. Realizing something is wrong, she tries to turn around and leave, but she can no longer figure out which direction leads out of the forest. A short time later, her car suddenly breaks down as well. Forced to continue on foot, Mina steps out of the vehicle while carrying the parrot's cage. As she looks ahead, she notices the same unsettling signboard standing nearby, "Point of no return." Confused and worried, she begins walking through the forest in search of help. However, there is no sign of another human being anywhere around. Eventually, she decides to return to the place where she left her car, but when she arrives, the car is gone. The sight leaves her completely shocked. At first, she convinces herself that she must have returned to the wrong location. Since every part of the forest looks exactly the same, perhaps she simply got lost and wandered somewhere else. Meanwhile, darkness continues to grow stronger. Just like before, all the birds suddenly fly away from the trees at the same moment. Mina's fear begins to rise. The ground starts shaking violently beneath her feet, and she gets the unsettling feeling that someone or something is nearby. Then she notices a shadow moving in the distance. She immediately runs after it, hoping to find another person, but when she reaches the spot, nobody is there. A few moments later, she catches sight of an old woman running through the forest. Desperate for help, Mina chases after her while calling out for assistance. However, the woman refuses to stop and keeps running deeper into the woods. Mina follows her once again, but suddenly the old woman vanishes without a trace. Determined to find her, Mina continues forward and eventually notices a large building standing alone in the middle of the forest. At that moment, the old woman appears at the doorway and quickly opens the door. "If you want to stay alive," she shouts, "come inside right now." Without wasting a second, Mina sprints toward the building. The moment she enters, the old woman slams the door shut and locks it. Looking around, Mina realizes that this is no ordinary room. Inside stands a massive mirror that dominates the entire space. The old woman is not alone either. There are 2 other people inside with her. Confused and frightened, Mina asks where she is. The old woman replies, "This place is called the Coop. My name is Madeline. This girl is Kiara. And this young man is Daniel." Before Mina can ask any more questions, Madeline interrupts her. This is not the time for explanation. "Quickly, stand with us in front of the mirror." Mina stares at them in confusion and asks, "Who exactly is coming to see us?" And just then, the old woman didn't answer Mina's question. Suddenly, strange noises started coming from outside. Frightened, Mina asked what those sounds were. Kiara explained that they called those creatures the Watchers. According to her, the Watchers stood on the other side of the mirror and watched them every night, although none of them could actually see the creatures themselves. They would arrive after sunset and continue observing them until sunrise. A moment later, loud noises began coming from the other side of the mirror. Mina asked what was causing the commotion, and the old woman explained that the Watchers were happy about Mina's arrival. They were supposedly applauding because a new person had entered their strange world. Mina was completely confused. She wanted nothing more than to escape from this place as quickly as possible. So far, neither she nor anyone else had ever actually seen these Watchers that Madeline kept talking about. The night eventually passed, and when morning arrived, everyone stepped outside. Madeline explained that the Watchers only came out during the night. During the daytime, they were free to move around the forest. Mina had spent the entire night waiting for sunrise because she was determined to find a way out of the forest. Without wasting any time, she immediately started searching for an escape route. Madeline stopped the others from trying to hold her back, almost as if she already knew that Mina would fail and eventually return. Before Mina left, Madeline warned her one last time. She told her that there was no way out of the forest and that everyone had to return to the house before nightfall. If she stayed out too long, she would lose her life. Ignoring the warning, Mina picked up her parrot and continued deeper into the forest. After walking for some time, she once again came across the same point of no return sign. Although it frightened her, she refused to give up. Using the sun as her guide, she kept moving forward in the same direction, hoping to eventually escape. However, she failed. Eventually, the path simply ended. Mina found herself standing on top of a mountain, and as far as she could see, there was nothing except endless forest stretching to the horizon. Feeling defeated, she sat down in disappointment. Suddenly, someone placed a hand on her shoulder. Startled, Mina turned around and saw that it was Madeline. The old woman tried to comfort her, explaining that she wasn't the first person to try escaping. Everyone else had failed as well. They had all eventually accepted their fate and remained there because there truly seemed to be no way out. Madeline then offered to show her something. She led Mina deeper into the forest and explained that the forest itself was a predator, while they were all its prey. If Mina wanted to survive, she needed to stay with the group. Soon, Madeline showed her dozens of point of no return signs arranged in a giant circular pattern around the forest, with their house sitting directly in the center. She explained that these signs were positioned about half a day's walk away from their home. Anyone who ventured beyond them might never be able to find their way back. That was why she warned Mina never to ignore those signs if she saw them. When Mina asked who had placed all of those signs there, Madeline replied that a professor had created them, although nobody had ever actually seen him. As night fell, they all returned to the house. Every evening, the Watchers came to observe them. That night, Kiara even danced in front of the mirror, claiming that the Watchers enjoyed watching such things. The group wasn't forced to stand in front of the mirror all night. They could do whatever they wanted. There was only one rule. They could never turn their backs toward the mirror. Whenever someone did, the Watchers became extremely angry. The nights were dangerous because of the Watchers, but the daytime wasn't easy either. Every day, they had to hunt in the forest to find enough food to survive. The following day, Kiara and Mina went hunting together. While they were walking, Mina asked what the Watchers actually wanted from them. Kiara admitted that she didn't really know. However, Madeline believed that the Watchers simply observed them. According to her, the real danger would come if any human ever managed to see a Watcher. She claimed that anyone who looked directly at them would lose their sanity because the creatures were unbelievably horrifying. A little later, Kiara showed Mina a large pit and explained that many similar pits existed throughout the forest. During the day, all of the Watchers stayed hidden inside these holes. They only emerged after sunset because sunlight burned their skin, preventing them from moving around during daylight hours. Kiara then revealed that she and her husband had entered the forest 5 months earlier and had been trapped there ever since. 6 days ago, her husband had gone searching for an escape route. She still believed he would return and somehow lead all of them safely out of the forest. At this point, it becomes clear that Kiara's husband was actually the same man shown at the beginning of the movie, the one who was dragged away by an unseen creature in the forest. Unknown to Kiara, he was already dead. After their conversation, the two women returned to the house. There, Madeline carefully explained the 3 rules for survival. The first rule was that nobody could open the door during the night. The second rule was that nobody could turn their back toward the mirror after sunset. The third rule was that they must never go near the pits during the daytime and should stay in sunlight whenever possible. Madeline assured Mina that as long as she followed these 3 rules, she would remain alive. However, Mina still didn't believe her. That night, her curiosity got the better of her. She wanted to learn more about the Watchers, so she pressed her ear against the mirror and tried listening for sounds from the other side. When she heard nothing, she became convinced that Madeline's stories were fake. As a result, she deliberately broke one of the rules. Instead of facing the mirror, she turned her back toward it and went to sleep. The reaction was immediate. The Watchers became furious and started violently pounding against the mirror. The loud noise woke Madeline, who quickly rushed over and ordered Mina to face the mirror at once. Only after after Mina obeyed, did the Watchers finally calm down. It seemed that whenever humans showed their backs to the Watchers, the creatures considered it a serious insult. That night eventually passed as well, and the next morning brought a new day in the terrifying forest. The next day, Mina and Daniel went out hunting together. Along the way, Mina asked him whether he had ever seen a Watcher with his own eyes. Daniel replied that he had never seen one either. According to everything he had heard, anyone who actually saw a Watcher never lived long enough to tell the story. Mina then shared her doubts, saying that she believed all of Madeline's stories were nothing more than lies meant to keep them trapped. She suggested that they should investigate the mysterious pits, because they might contain a way out of the forest. Daniel had grown tired of being trapped there, and desperately wanted to escape as well, so he agreed to help her. The two of them eventually reached one of the pits. Mina tied a rope around herself while Daniel held the other end. The plan was simple. If anything went wrong, Daniel would immediately pull her back out. Mina slowly descended into the pit and discovered a large collection of human belongings scattered throughout the darkness. She gathered everything she could find. The items clearly belonged to previous victims who had fallen prey to the Watchers. Using the rope, Daniel pulled up cameras, bicycles, and various useful supplies from the pit. While Mina waited below for the rope to be lowered again, she suddenly heard movement inside the pit. Panic immediately set in. She shouted for Daniel to throw the rope down. At that moment, a Watcher's hand reached toward her from the darkness. Fortunately, Mina was standing in a patch of sunlight. As soon as the sunlight touched the Watcher's hand, its skin began to burn. Daniel quickly lowered the rope, and Mina climbed out as fast as she could. She was completely terrified by what she had just experienced. The two returned to their safe house, carrying all the items they had recovered. Madeline immediately became suspicious and asked where they had found everything. They lied and claimed that they had discovered the items somewhere in the forest. However, Madeline had spent a long time trapped there and knew very well that the belongings could only have come from one of the pits. She directly asked Mina what she had seen down there, but Mina refused to answer. Despite this, Mina and Daniel were excited because among the recovered items was a camera. They believed they could finally see the Watchers. Daniel managed to connect the camera to a television using a makeshift setup, hoping to capture footage of the creatures. Madeline repeatedly warned them that they were making a terrible mistake, but neither of them listened. That night, everyone waited eagerly for the Watchers to appear. Hours passed, but strangely, no Watchers showed up. Then something even stranger happened. Suddenly, someone knocked on the front door. Everyone quickly looked at the television feed from the camera outside. They could only see a pair of human legs standing there. The person outside was speaking in the voice of Kiara's husband and was begging them to open the door. Kiara immediately became convinced that her husband had finally found a way out of the forest and returned to rescue them. She rushed toward the door, desperate to let him in. However, Madeline stopped her. She insisted that the person outside could not possibly be her husband because no human being could reach the house at night. Kiara refused to believe her. She continued trying to open the door. Madeline then suggested a test. She told Kiara to ask the person outside something that only she and her husband would know. Kiara asked him a question about a specific book, something her husband should have been able to answer instantly. The figure outside remained silent. At that moment, everyone realized the truth. It was a Watcher pretending to be her husband. When they refused to open the door, the Watcher smashed the camera outside. This revealed another terrifying fact. The Watchers were capable of disguising themselves as human beings. Furious at being exposed, they began slamming against the mirror with incredible force, eventually creating a large crack in its surface. Thinking quickly, Madeline lined everyone up facing the mirror. Gradually, the Watchers calmed down and finally left. Afterward, Mina confessed that all the items had been stolen from the pit. Madeline became extremely angry because they had broken the second rule as well. The following morning, she gathered every item they had recovered and threw them back into the pit. This seemed to calm the Watchers somewhat. However, strange things soon began happening around the forest, and Daniel appeared to be affected more than anyone else. He started becoming irrationally angry over the smallest things. Meanwhile, Kiara had completely lost hope. Until now, she had clung to the belief that her husband was still alive and would eventually return to save her. But after the previous night, she finally accepted that he was gone forever. The realization shattered her emotion. Convinced that she had nothing left to live for, she decided to throw herself into one of the Watchers' pits and end her life. Just as she was about to do it, Mina arrived in time and stopped her. Around the same time, Daniel began acting even more strangely. He stared at Madeline with growing hostility before finally snapping. In a fit of anger, he tied Madeline to a tree and declared that he was done following her rules. From now on, everyone would follow his orders instead. As night approached, Daniel ran back to the house, and Kiara followed him. Meanwhile, Mina stayed behind to untie Madeline and free her. Daniel then locked himself and Kiara inside the house, leaving Mina and Madeline outside as darkness slowly began to fall over the forest. Madeline had been left outside inside for the Watchers. Mina and Madeline desperately begged Daniel to open the door, pleading with him again and again to let them inside. They told him they would die if he left them out there, but Daniel refused to open the door. As darkness completely covered the forest, the time for the Watchers to emerge had finally arrived. With no other option left, Mina and Madeline were forced to hide beneath a dense tree, hoping to stay unnoticed. Soon, terrifying growling sounds echoed throughout the forest. For the first time, both Mina and the audience caught a clear glimpse of the Watchers. They were tall, thin, horrifying creatures that crawled out of their underground pits as night fell. One by one, they made their way toward the safe room to observe the humans. However, when they discovered that Mina and Madeline were missing, they immediately spread throughout the forest and began searching for them like predators hunting prey. Once the Watchers moved farther away, Mina and Madeline took advantage of the opportunity and rushed back to the safe room. They once again begged Daniel to let them in. This time, Daniel's conscience finally won over his fear, and he opened the door for them. After getting inside, Madeline first scolded Daniel for abandoning them, and then gathered everyone in front of the giant mirror. She explained that they had already broken too many rules, and that she no longer believed the Watchers would forgive them. She then revealed a shocking truth. The first time she had arrived in this forest, she had seen something that terrified her beyond words. She had seen another version of herself. It was actually a Watcher attempting to copy her appearance. Although the creature had almost perfectly mimicked her face and body, its eyes and hair were not completely accurate. Confused, Mina asked what exactly the Watchers were. Madeline explained that they were actually fairies. Long ago, fairies were magical winged creatures who lived peacefully alongside humans. However, over time, humans began to fear their powers and eventually decided to eliminate them. Since humans greatly outnumbered the fairies, they were unable to fight back. Humans captured them and imprisoned them inside a massive underground pit deep within the forest, placing a curse upon them so they could never escape. For hundreds of years, the fairies remained trapped beneath the earth, but over time, they dug tunnels underground and slowly found ways to emerge again. Those same fairies had now become the creatures known as Watchers. Madeline further explained that centuries spent underground had changed them completely. They lost their wings, most of their magical abilities disappeared, and sunlight became painful for them. However, they still possessed one extraordinary power, the ability to change their appearance. Daniel then asked why the Watchers kept observing them every night, and what they actually wanted. Madeline revealed that the Watchers wanted to return to human society. However, in their monstrous forms, they could never blend in among people. That was why they trap humans inside the forest. By watching them every night, they learned human behavior, copied their appearance, and studied modern customs so they could eventually replace them and live among humans again. As Madeline was revealing all of this, the Watchers suddenly returned. The moment they realized that Mina and Madeline had made it back inside the room, they became furious. They immediately began smashing against the door, trying to force their way inside. The 4 survivors rushed to drag a heavy table in front of the entrance in an attempt to block it, but the Watchers were incredibly strong, and everyone knew it was only a matter of time before the creatures broke through. For the first time, death felt unavoidable. Then they noticed something strange. While dragging the table, part of the carpet had folded over. Curious, they pulled the carpet aside and discovered a large metal hatch hidden beneath it. Without wasting any time, they opened it and were shocked to find a huge underground bunker below. The group quickly climbed inside and sealed the hatch behind them. Once inside, they were amazed by what they saw. The bunker contained enough food to last for years, a computer system, and countless other survival supplies. Mina couldn't understand who had built such a place, so she turned on the computer to investigate. The files stored inside revealed that the bunker had been built by Professor Martin. The records showed that Martin had known about the Watchers for years and had become obsessed with studying them. To conduct his research, he secretly built this bunker beneath the forest. However, the truth behind his research was horrifying. He would lure people into the forest by offering them money and work opportunity. At night, he would hide safely inside the bunker while leaving those workers in the room above. The Watchers would then come and devour those people, while Martin observed everything and collected data. As they continued watching the recordings, they uncovered another disturbing revelation. During his research, Professor Martin had discovered a very unusual fairy one that could leave the underground pits even during daylight. This fairy had perfectly taken the appearance of a little girl, so perfectly that nobody could tell the difference. Unlike the others, she was kind and never tried to harm him. Martin brought her back with him, but when the camera angle changed, everyone was horrified to see that he had locked the fairy inside a cage. The creature remained trapped there in the form of a small girl. Nobody knew what kind of experiment Martin planned to perform on her. The computer contained dozens of recordings, each revealing more secrets than the last. However, Mina only wanted to know how everything ended. She opened the final video and discovered that Professor Martin had decided to kill both himself and the fairy. Before doing so, he left behind one final message for anyone trapped inside the forest. He explained that there was a way to escape. At sunset, the birds always flew toward freedom, and anyone who followed the direction of those birds could find their way out of the forest. Martin also made one final request. He said that if anyone ever managed to escape alive, they must go to his university and destroy all of his research, because coming to this forest had been the biggest mistake of his life. After delivering his final message, Professor Martin left the bunker and headed upstairs. Moments later, 2 gunshots echoed through the forest. The sound of gunshots echoed through the forest, and instantly everyone understood what had happened. Professor Martin had first shot the fairy and then taken his own life. That night, all 4 survivors felt a sense of relief for the first time, because they had finally discovered a way to escape this cursed forest. The next morning, they climbed out of the bunker only to find that their safe house had been completely destroyed by the Watcher. It was now clear that they absolutely had to escape the forest before nightfall. Otherwise, they would certainly die because they no longer had any shelter left to hide in. Without wasting any time, they began following the route that would hopefully lead them out of the forest. According to Professor Martin, the birds would only fly in the correct direction during the evening. However, they couldn't afford to wait until then. Because of this, Mina released the golden parrot she had been carrying all this time. The group decided to follow the exact direction in which the bird flew. While traveling through the forest, they came across a grave. Looking at it, Madeline revealed that there was once a time when fairies and humans lived together peacefully. But humans eventually betrayed them, treated them cruelly, and abandoned them inside these forests before leaving them behind forever. After several hours of traveling, the group finally reached a river. There, they discovered Professor Martin's boat. Seeing it filled them with excitement because it seemed their escape was finally within reach. Unfortunately, their happiness didn't last long. Darkness had already started falling, and with it came the time when the Watchers would emerge. Just before they could board Dr. Martin's boat and leave the area, they suddenly heard someone shouting for help behind them. When they turned around, they saw Ciara's husband desperately calling out to them. He was badly injured and struggling to stay on his feet. By that point, everyone else had already boarded the boat, so Daniel alone went back to help him. Daniel grabbed Ciara's husband and began dragging him toward the boat. But then something horrifying happened. From the boat, the others watched as the person Daniel was helping transformed right before their eyes. He wasn't Ciara's husband at all. He was a Watcher. And within moments, that Watcher copied Daniel's appearance perfectly. The others could do nothing but watch helplessly as the creature killed Daniel right in front of them. Fortunately, they knew one important thing. The Watchers could not cross the river. Taking advantage of that weakness, the remaining survivors crossed the river and finally escaped back to the city. However, the story's biggest twist was still waiting to be revealed. After returning to civilization, the 3 survivors went their separate ways. A few days later, Mina visited Professor Martin's university to fulfill his final request and destroy all of his research data. But before deleting everything, she discovered an old tape recorder. What she heard on that tape revealed an entirely new secret. Thousands of years ago, when humans and fairies lived together, marriages between them were actually common. The children born from those unions inherited qualities from both species and were known as halfling. These halflings possessed an extraordinary ability. They were such master shapeshifters that they could even perfectly imitate dead humans. Professor Martin believed that when humans imprisoned the fairies inside the underground pits, many halflings secretly blended into human society by constantly changing their appearance. According to his theory, they might still be living among humans even today. While investigating Martin's office, Mina stumbled upon several old photographs that completely shocked her. In one of them, she saw a woman standing beside Professor Martin. That woman was none other than Madeline. The discovery confused Mina because she couldn't understand why Madeline had never told them this truth. Wanting answers, Mina visited Ciara and told her everything she had found. She explained that the Madeline they met in the forest was actually Professor Martin's wife. However, she had hidden the truth because she wasn't really human at all. She was a shape-shifting fairy. Mina's research uncovered another shocking fact. The real Madeline had died from cancer many years ago. Hearing this, Ciara was stunned and asked, "Then who was the Madeline who spent all that time with us?" At that moment, everything finally started making sense to Mina. She explained that Professor Martin had been devastated by his wife's death and desperately wanted her back. When he learned about shape-shifting fairies, he captured one that had appeared before him in the form of a little girl. The fairy had perfectly taken on the appearance of a child. Martin then showed her photographs of his late wife and gradually transformed her into an exact copy of Madeline. Unlike the other fairies, this particular one was unique because she could even walk outside during daylight. Mina then revealed that she had already invited Madeline to meet them. She believed they somehow needed to convince her to return to the forest. Just then, a car pulled up outside. When the person stepped out of the vehicle, Mina felt her heart stop. It was Ciara. That meant the woman who had been standing beside Mina all this time wasn't Ciara at all. It was Madeline. She had been disguised as Ciara the entire time. The moment the real Ciara entered the house, Madeline instantly transformed Ciara's husband and knocked her unconscious. Shocked and confused, Mina finally confronted her. "What do you really want?" Madeline's expression turned emotional as she revealed the truth. She explained that she had always been different from the other fairies. Ever since childhood, they mocked her, rejected her, and refused to accept her because she wasn't like them. She spent her entire life feeling lonely and isolated inside the forest. More than anything, she wanted to leave that place behind and live among humans. Then one day, Professor Martin entered the forest and captured her. He locked her inside a cage and made her an offer. If she agreed to take the appearance of his dead wife, he would take her out of the forest and into the human world. Desperate for a chance at a normal life, she accepted his offer. Madeline continued her story and revealed that Professor Martin had taught her everything about the real Madeline, her behavior, her habits, the way she talked, and everything else she needed to perfectly imitate her. But later, that same professor betrayed her and tried to kill her. Fortunately for her, before he could carry out his plan, she killed him first. Filled with anger, Madeline looked at Mina and said that humans had never been worthy of trust and never would be. Now that Mina knew the truth about her, she couldn't be allowed to live either. Madeline declared that after killing Mina, she would take her appearance and live freely among humans forever. As soon as she finished speaking, Madeline transformed into Mina's exact duplicate. She then grabbed Mina by the throat and began strangling her. Mina struggled to breathe, but even in that moment, she tried to reason with Madeline. She asked her whether Professor Martin had ever explained why she was able to walk around during the daytime, while other fairies could not. Mina then revealed the truth. Madeline wasn't a normal fairy at all. She was actually a hybrid, a halfling, half human and half fairy. That was the reason she could exist in both worlds. She belonged neither completely to humans nor completely to fairies. Mina told her that she understood what it felt like to be alone, but Madeline wasn't the only halfling in existence. There were many others just like her who were secretly living among humans, hidden in different forms throughout the world. The moment Madeline heard this shocking truth, something inside her changed. Her body suddenly began transforming back into its true form. Within seconds, her disguise disappeared, and large fairy wings emerged from her back. Overwhelmed by the revelation, she released Mina and stepped away. Then, without saying another word, Madeline spread her wings and flew away into the distance, leaving Mina behind. A few weeks later, the story jumps forward in time. Mina is now living peacefully with her sister. During a conversation, she admits that she still feels as if the fairy might be watching her or following her somewhere out there. Her sister tries to comfort her and assures her that she is only imagining things and that there is nothing to be afraid of anymore. However, the movie saves one final surprise for the ending. As the camera pulls back, we see a small young girl standing quietly outside Mina's house. At first, she looks completely normal, but then it becomes clear who she really is. The little girl is none other than Madeline. She is now living in the human world under a new appearance, blending in among people exactly as she always wanted. And with that mysterious and unsettling twist, the story finally comes to an end.